All right. Thanks for joining this podcast with me, Connor. We have a very special guest from the UK who is a very genuine fan of Uzbek football. And as far as I know, it's been for like over 10 years that you've been following Uzbek football.
Yeah, so hi, thank you for having me on. Yeah, for the most part, it's been around, it must be around a decade. It's kind of gradually increased in terms of the degree that I kind of pay attention and support from being kind of just a casual person who like checked scores and was aware of two or three players to kind of what it is now where I'm looking at like the third tier and following players getting moves to like Spanish B teams and things like that. So it's kind of gradually increased, and um, I think my odd affection for a country I've never been to has gradually increased with that time as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like, somebody from like very far away and yeah, like being interested in Uzbek football so much. Yeah, for a long time. It's not just month or a year. It's been like so long. But before we dive into like how it all started, can we just talk about like your background, like who are you, where you're from, and where you live, and like
Yeah, sure.
your kind of your interest in football in general, not just Uzbek, but in general.
Yeah, sure. So obviously, like, I'm Connor. So I'm from Scotland originally. I'm from the set from parts of Scotland nobody's heard of. So it's pointless to name little villages that people won't have heard of. I currently live in Newcastle, so in the north of England, so just south of Scotland. But I previously lived in Gibraltar before that, which is a little British territory near Spain. And then before that, I was back in Scotland. When it comes to sort of football, I grew up as an Arsenal fan, simply because I came from a little part of Scotland where there was no team. There wasn't like a local team, even your sort of like Dundees or your Hibernians. We didn't have a team like that. So I kind of followed the Premiership on TV like most people do around the world. And I started supporting Arsenal because of a player called Freddie Ljungberg, who had like a red mohawk. And I remember as a kid, I thought that was the coolest thing. So I started supporting Arsenal from then because of him, I guess. And then that kind of spawned into my awareness of Uzbek football, which was due to like a transfer link of Odil Akhmedov to Arsenal back in the early 2010s. It's one of those things where it'll happen today where the big clubs get linked to players and you're like, who's that? So you go look them up, you watch YouTube highlights or you search on Wikipedia, and then you end up kind of going down a rabbit hole, in my case, where you sort of like start to pay attention to him and then you pay attention to the team he played for. And then it kind of opens the door to everything.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm a Gunners fan myself.
Oh, fantastic.
Arsenal fan myself. I've been following them like since 2002, I believe, or 2001. I think when they played against Liverpool in the cup final, and we lost. I think 1-0.
Yes. Yeah.
Michael Owen, he scored the goal.
There was the Henshaw handball as well, with the underhanded ball. Yeah, I remember that.
Wow. So you've been like following him before that, probably.
But it would have been around that time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember Nuremberg. He was one of my favorite, like the winger.
Yeah.
I loved how he like would make that runs and cross the balls, and it was awesome.
Very underrated, I think, now at least.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you said that you started kind of just casually, just following Uzbek football, and starting from around 2010 when Odil Akhmedov was being scouted by Arsenal.
Yeah,
Right?
so he was playing he was playing in Russia for Angie at the time, and it was kind of when Roberto Carlos, Yuri Zhukov, Samuel Eto'o, Samba, all these sort of they had all the money, and he was one of the players that they signed, and then he got linked to Arsenal, so I kind of just did what we used to do, looked him up, liked kind of the fact that he didn't look as strong as I think he was, and he was prone to a goal from like far out, and it was really impressive. And so I kind of wanted them to sign him, and then they didn't. But I kind of went, oh, they might sign him in the future. So kind of paid attention to him a bit longer, and then started watching like a subsequent Asian Cup. And then that kind of opened the door to other players, Gajenrik, Nestorov, Chaparov, all these other players who kind of then expanded it where I wasn't just paying attention to Odil Akhmedov.
Yeah, Yeah, awesome. Yeah. I think I remember, like, exactly remember that those times when Uzbekistan was in the, I think, Asian Cup in Qatar, where
Yeah,
like they scored the, like, just banger from long distance. And yeah, and then I think that generation was like really good, don't you think?
yeah.
With
Was the
Jabbar and all of that.
I think if they had a couple of, I think if they're defensively more sound, I think they would have achieved a lot more.
Yeah.
I think the talent was at the forward end of the pitch, and I don't
e-
think it was as good at the back.
Yeah, exactly. And also I think that the style of play was like, just always try to like just attack and
Yeah,
like, how do you say, like, the best defense is attack, right? So
yeah. And
yeah,
I think they were a bit naive, and then they got punished.
exactly.
And yeah, but they faced the good teams.
Exactly. So here's a question for you. Okay. Like back, like a lot of people like that how we used to play back then. I know
Yeah,
2007 and that when Jabbar and Ahmed were all playing. But right now we're, I think, good at the defense. If you know, like the middle block and low block is like good, but the forward is not that much. Even though we have Shomurodov, and but we're not still like people. That's what people think, that we're not attacking that much. If you compare like back then, like maybe 10, 15 years ago and now, what do you think? Which team, I guess the first question would be, which team would you prefer watching?
that's difficult because I think I would prefer the 2010s team from an enjoyment view, but I enjoy the current team because it gets the results. And so,
Exactly.
would you rather risk, would you rather be more entertained but risk losing, or be more pragmatic and increase your chances of winning? I think the result against Iran recently, where it was being quite consistent draws, I don't think that would have happened with the Japarov team, etc. And I think the tactics that the coach uses now is very defensive. I do wish he'd be a bit more attacking when it's playing against lesser caliber teams. I think he still is a bit too rigid for those sort of games, but I do like that they're able to go against the big teams, and they may not look like winning, but they don't look like losing either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think even the players, Otabek Shukur, for example, he mentioned like recently saying that in the past we used to just play like, very beautiful football, attacking all the time, but we didn't get the results that we needed.
Yeah,
And right now, and also we are like, just trying to get to the World Cup.
yeah,
And I know that's why we need the results. We don't need like, just.
yeah. Nobody remembers. Like when you think of like even an Arsenal team, nobody remembers the Arsenal teams from like 2005 to 2010. They may remember a nice goal in here, but they didn't win anything. So
Exactly.
they didn't achieve what they could have achieved or should have achieved. My thinking is that for Uzbekistan right now, the onus needs to be World Cup qualification, regardless of how they get there. And if they have to play three centre backs and two full backs, or wing backs, sorry, then and that's the way they get it. And if they put Rebecca off and Shooter off in the middle, and that's how they get to the World Cup, I'm completely happy with that. I will not care as long as they're there. So I'll take pragmatic, boring football that gets results than exciting football that means they lose 3-0 to South Korea or 4-0 when they needed a draw.
Exactly, exactly. And I think we're gonna wrap this up about this the historical, I mean, the history of Uzbek football with one more question. If you were to compare the players back then and now, which team do you think seems like more, like stronger than, I mean, stronger when you do compare?
It's difficult because I think in certain positions, if you're to do like a combined 11, or there's like positions where there's players who clearly get in, like I think Nestorov would clearly get in, I think Denisov would clearly get in, from like the Akhmedov would get in, Japarov would get in, but then it's really hard. I think the current team would win purely based on the fact that I think they would be able to punish the older team.
Okay.
And I think defensively with Kusanov, etc. in the back, I think they're a little bit more, they'd be able to handle what they're getting more so than I think that the team of the 2010s were able to handle Faziliev, Mushparov, and
Yeah.
Eldor.
Yeah. I mean, even back then, I mean, the team was like really good too. For example, even the game week was, I
Hmm.
remember, he was also good
Yeah,
too, I think he played for CSKA in Russia as well.
Yeah, around
Olympic.
like 2000. I think he's the first Uzbek to win a European trophy technically, because he was part of your squad that won the UEFA Cup. Like obviously he played in like Korea and he played in Kazakhstan, so
Yeah, at the end of his
he's a
career.
good striker. I don't think Cristiano, for example, could handle him.
Yeah,
Other
yeah,
Pulos as well. I think they could handle him more than I think the defense could handle the attacking talent that exists now.
yeah, exactly. Okay. So the next question is, I was going to ask you, how do you follow Uzbek football? Do you follow using just purely on Twitter or Instagram, or do you also watch some matches? Or I mean, obviously you watch some matches like the
Yeah.
World Cup, but do you watch the clubs matches and all of that?
It's a mix. There's obviously there's Twitter there. So I'll pay attention to sort of obviously like a lot of Uzbek websites have Twitter pages, clubs have Twitter profiles. YouTube, there's tons of like regional FAs and YouTube channels which live stream games. So that was handy. I remember back in the day there was an app that allowed you to watch. I can't remember the name of it, so I can't use it now because I don't remember. Telegram's really good for sort of Uzbek related stuff. Most of the teams have Telegram channels. There's Telegram channels like Uzbekistan Legionnaires, which is really good for following the foreign based players. So it's typically, and I don't do as much anymore, but I used to like Google Translate like Uzbek sporting websites. Is it Championat Asia?
Yes, Championat Asia. Yes.
Yeah. So I remember I used to like, when I was predominantly paying attention to like haqida, I would search them in Google Translate the entire article just so I could read it.
Must be hard.
It was a time, I remember I did it on my phone, and it was like word by word. It took like 5 minutes to read the entire article, but if you on a laptop, it was much easier. Should have been doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you use Telegram app, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of news and a lot of information, all that stuff, like the analytical, articles, they're all on Telegram, because
Yeah.
in
There's a
in
lot.
that part of the world, like people use Telegram more than they use like Twitter, for example.
I think a lot of like clubs anyway are a lot more active on that. Like you get kind of like even the professional league, these big super leagues, so they're quite active on it. Journalists are active on it. So you do get kind of a lot of content, even regionally, between the different football associations. They'll post things from like local tournaments and stuff. So you can see constant output of information on that. Not even just for Uzbek football, but football in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan is quite prominent on that app. So it's a very useful source of just keeping in touch with all the Superliga, the Pro Liga, and the third tier as well. You get all your sort of information from that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Telegram has an option that can translate, right? The posts.
A lot of it's to a degree, but a lot of the time you can I find quite useful is I can select the entire article and then just hit it into Google Translate. So for something I don't particularly understand, or kind of I don't really know what that's about, but I want to know, I'll just select all the information, pop it in Google Translate, and it'll translate it into understandable English, even if it's a little bit off.
Okay. So you still use Google Translate?
Well, yeah, because
Yeah.
Uzbek is not which is just easy resources to even attempt to learn.
Exactly. But I mean, for some reason, like sometimes, so I have my own Telegram channel called Samvel Karlenovich Sarkisyan. Have you heard about
Okay,
that?
good.
So
You just send me that enough. So.
yeah, I'll send it. So again, it's like I do a lot of. I mean, we have other people as well in the channel. We post a lot of analytical stuff, posts and videos. We do some tactics as well. Not as much as the regular posts and news, but sometimes we do that. So but when I was doing that, I've seen that translate that. So I haven't tried it yet, but I would assume that it can translate into English, but maybe it's not as good as Google Translate. So
I'm not sure. Maybe I've not looked for it. I don't remember seeing something.
okay.
But maybe it does, and I've just been stupid and not seeing it.
No, it's okay. I mean, we probably don't use Telegram like outside this football, anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Okay. The next question I had was, so pretty much the level of all Uzbek players on the first Liga and Super League and all of that. and the players that are playing outside, Kusanov, Shamuradov, pretty much. I shouldn't say which. How many of those players do you think you would be able to make it at the Premier League level?
Oh,
One, two. I mean, I know Kusanov would probably.
Cristiano would be I think the favorite. I think he could. I think he needs another year or two. I think if he's still at Lens, he needs another 18 months there. If he was to leave, I hope he would go to a medium or relatively like European standard size in Spain or Italy. So I would have said Roma, but Roma's not been the kindest to Eldor in terms of game time. But like a Sevilla or Villarreal or someone like that would be good. And then maybe jump to like a big English team. I think he could do it, but I think if he went now, he would be buried in a team, and I don't think he would get the chances, and I think that would hurt his development. Same with Vasiliev. I think he could do it. His stature would probably be the only thing I think they would put teams off, because I think teams would be concerned he could bullied off the ball. Outside of those two, I think it would be challenging to think of a third. At least now, there's players like Uranov who have natural talent, but I don't know whether he has the mental drive to do it. His time in Russia, outside of the initial stint at Ufa, was very anticlimactic and a bit. There's that picture of him dressed in like Gucci clothes, surrounded by shopping bags and stuff.
Exactly.
And I think that wasn't a great look. And I don't know whether he's just one of those players who will just spend time in the Middle East, maybe bounce to Saudi, pick up good money. But I think technically, I think he could. I just don't know if he ever will. The only other one I think has proven that he may be able to do something would be Uranboyev, because he was at Brentford, their B team. And by all accounts, he did well. So I think he may not be able to go to that standard, but I think he could at least be at that the academy level, and then maybe jump into it. But I think Eldor could, because he plays in Serie A. So it would probably be Eldor, Kusanov, and maybe Vasiliev. So I think maybe three currently. Maybe in the future, maybe there'll be more, but I think right now they'd be the only three that I'd be confident could handle it.
Yeah, and then I mean, even though those three would probably be able to play at that level, but it will be like very challenging. To get the first team spot.
I think what countries like Japan and South Korea have done is like they had, I think it's not stigma, but I think they've kind of gotten over that kind of stigma that I think a lot of English people and followers of the Premier League would have over a player from Uzbekistan, is simply because it's not a nation where people associate it with football. So the players would have to be that extra special to kind of get the team and the fan support.
Exactly.
Whereas you get players like Hyuji Son and Matoma, who've kind of made it a lot easier for Japanese players and Korean players to get to that league. You have players like Taremi, who are at obviously Inter Milan, who've done it to an extent, but I think even then it's still difficult for Iranian players to get that much of a chance. And I think Uzbekistan are lower than that, because there's not been an Uzbek player who played top level football in England, let alone played to a standard where they're viewed as being a really good player. Once that happens, like if Kusanov went to a Tottenham, hopefully not, or maybe a Newcastle, which would be great for me, and became a player where people get familiar with him, but get familiar with Uzbekistan, then I think it'll be something that we could maybe speak about in 5 years and have a completely different answer.
Exactly. I was also gonna say that now if Kusanov goes to Europe, like the other teams, top 5 league, I hope it will be like some like Newcastle level, or just Sevilla or Villarreal level, because he needs to be playing football right now. Instead of just fighting for the first team spot. So
I think his development at Lens was good, because he came in and he was given some time, but wasn't given a lot of time. And then this season, he obviously started in the game tonight, and he played well. Obviously they drew, but I think if he went to an Arsenal or Man United, I just don't think he would get a chance unless they spend 40 million on him. He's not going to get a chance.
Exactly.
And he needs to go to an Everton or Newcastle, like a lower tier team that will be in the Premier League, not be a risk of relegation, but he'll get game time. But I would prefer if he did that, but in Spain or Italy, because I think he would be able to get his value would be far higher, and it would push him up to maybe even a Barca or a Real Madrid if he was performing a Sevilla consistently.
Yes,
And I'd rather him play for Barcelona than Tottenham.
yeah, yeah. That would be awesome if he plays for Barcelona or Real Madrid. I mean, I know, like, I think mostly in England, I've noticed that too. Like, I mean, the chance of a player playing, the first minute from the first minute, depends on how much they spend on that player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I think they think, like, we spent so much money, we need to just play him now. If it's like, like 5 million, 2 million, like if it's a younger player, I mean, it takes a long time, years to even get a chance.
And even then, sometimes depending on which club you go to, you won't get a chance anyway. So it's a case of, I think, if he was to go to like an Arsenal, I don't think he would start. He would maybe get similar to what a Jakob Kivior gets, which is bench, maybe the odd appearance when someone's injured. And that would be even if he cost 25 million, which is kind of roughly what his value is right now, I believe. I think he needs to go to a lower team, build up that, and become, instead of a 25 million player, be 40, 50. And then he'll guarantee that when he gets that big move, he will basically be given a spot rather than have to sit and wait. And then the longer he waits, the less chance he actually is going to get a positive outcome from that transfer.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you think about not the Premier League level, like, forgot the name of that, the first league, then the next one?
Championship.
Yeah,
I think I remember when Hull City got taken over by this Turkish man, and he brought in Shota Ataladze for a short period of time. There was links of Masharapov to Hull, and I think that would have been a perfect move for him, because I think he would have got game time. I think it is a level that is a lot more competitive than people think, and it's a good level, and I think he would have done well. Obviously, that didn't happen anyway to Saudi, but I think for that level, I think you could have I think Uranov would be perfect for that level. He could handle the physicality, and he has the skills and the abilities to be a difference maker for that level. So I think like a team like Leeds or something would be perfect for him. If that happened, that'd be great. I don't know if they would be scouring the Iranian league for an Uzbek winger.
Yeah. I think, like Urunet, it's a bit different. Like, he's really good. He has talent, but he's not consistent, or like, I think lately he's been like injury prone. Being injured, and whenever he comes back, one game he plays really well, and the next game again.
I think he's kind of he doesn't give me vibe. He gives me kind of memories of like Yakshaboev in terms of has the ability to score at the Bernabeu, but then disappear and do nothing, and then end up in Kazakhstan. When he could have done something in Poland, and then maybe got a move to like the Dutch league or something. He could have done something more than he's done. I think Uranov is kind of similar, and he'll be one that I think I'll look back up. He could have achieved a lot more if he just kept his head down and was consistent and made smart moves. I think the move to Iran, I think, was a good one in hindsight, but it was very odd when it happened, because it didn't make sense why he would pick to go there. I hope he doesn't stay there particularly long. I would want him to go back to Europe and maybe play in like a Serbian league, or kind of one of those Eastern European leagues where the standard's good, but it's not incredible. And then because he's still relatively young, so he could go there and then progress into a Western European league.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's like 24, I believe. So he still has a lot of time to to show himself, to prove himself. So yeah. Okay, so that was about like national teams and like big players. What clubs do you follow? Is that
I kind of thought I have this kind of stance where like I would say I'm a Pakator fan, because that was the club that kind of got me into Uzbek football as a domestic league. I kind of do cheer on everyone in a kind of very fence-sitting answer, but I try to kind of have a team from each league. So like Pakator tends to be the main one from the Uzbek Super League. I like Dostalik from the Pro Liga, and not sure if I pronounced it correctly. Is it Semenenchi?
Cementi, yes.
They have like a women's team, but like they had a third tier team, so I wanted them to do well. And obviously, like teams like Dijon, I like their fans, that sort of experience. That looks like it'd be really good to go to. So so I kind of follow everyone, but I would say it was those teams are kind of the teams that I hope to do well more than the rest, I guess.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you follow even the first league and Cementi. I don't follow those myself. That's awesome. So I'm sure you've been asked this question, like if you would come to Uzbekistan, which games would you want to go watch?
So I've got a few. I would want to go to see Dijon because a whole Dijon game because I want to see the tifos and the fans and everything like that. My favorite stadium is the Jar Stadium in Tashkent, the one where like Olympic play. I like the look of it. It looks like it'd be really nice to watch a game there. Also, obviously, I want Pakator Stadium, probably the Stadium Karachi. So I think they would be kind of the top ones I would want to go to, because they're kind of the stadiums that I've enjoyed watching via a screen.
Yeah, exactly. I think Jar is like really pretty. I mean, it's like small, but
Yeah.
it's a really good stadium. And also, I think Baktak was supposed to be like real nice to after the renovations
Yeah,
started. So we'll see.
I hope so. It's disappointing that it's very rarely full, but
It is,
I think if they refurbed it, put a roof on or something like that, maybe it would be a bit more enticing for local fans.
yeah. Are you planning on like making a visit to Uzbekistan sometime?
I think at some point, I kind of need to. At some point, I think I have to. Kind of spent too long following it not to visit. I have nothing planned as of yet, but I think it's something that I'll look to do maybe a year or two.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about coaches? Which coaches do you think are good when it comes to like I mean, some coaches like they have like general like instructions like saying just do this, like play like a good football. Some coaches, I believe, you can see what they says is you can see the signature, like you can see what they're trying to do. Like the style of play is a little bit clear when you watching them. Who do you watch when it comes to like who do you think are good coaches, managers in Uzbekistan right now?
I think when it comes to good, I think Abramov and Berdiev, so the Dinamo and Nasaf coaches, they tend to play, at least from what I've seen, maybe I'm incorrect, but they're the teams that I enjoy watching football most. It doesn't seem as pragmatic and as defensive as other teams. There's a lot of sometimes coaches changes, so there can be times where I don't know who's coaching like Metalurg at a point because they've sacked the manager and it's someone I've never heard of. I did enjoy watching the U23s, so Kapadze. I think I'm curious where he's going to go next. I don't know as of yet. I hope it's not Navpahor, but I think that's a possibility maybe.
Yeah,
I think the coaching is not as progressive as I think the players. I think it's a couple of years behind. I think the coaching is kind of the next thing that needs to maybe branch out of Uzbekistan as a whole. Apart from like, I think the Afghanistan national team manager is Uzbek, and there's probably a couple of club managers in like Tajikistan that I don't know, but you don't really see any managers go abroad. So it'd be kind of good to see that. I'm not the biggest fan of Babayan.
yeah.
Obviously, Lokomotiv got relegated, and I think he's meant to go back. He's meant to go there. So I'm not really 100% looking forward to that. I would say mainly it'd be Abramov and Berdiev would be the coaches that I would enjoy watching their work.
Exactly. I like those coaches as well. Kapadze, I mean, I think Kapadze has the potential to just go abroad because I've heard that, the past several years, I think 4 or 5 years, he's been like, doing a lot of training and he's going to, I think, Russia to learn from, the CSKA's, coaches, like how they do the, training, all of that. So I hope that because he's also young, right? So like, open-minded to learning to try to get, some ideas from like, European football. So he'll be good for, to go and then just try out at least at some, not the top level, maybe some, second level, that type of.
I kind of hope he takes a risk rather than because I think the natural option would be maybe to manage, if it's outside Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, or like a lower level Russian team from like the FNL rather than like the top tier. It's like a Tomsk or a team like that. I'd rather he kind of maybe takes a risk and goes to maybe like a second tier or third tier Spanish team or something a bit more interesting. And because if it failed, I think he'd always get a job back in Uzbekistan at some club. So I hope he doesn't play it safe and actually takes a risk and goes and tries to make a name for himself in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hopefully that will happen soon because, because I think if when this the new season starts, I think he might take some club, and that will kind of push him again to stay in Uzbekistan more, right?
Yeah.
Well, he will kind of actively look out for opportunities abroad.
Yeah.
So you follow Uzbek national team, Uzbek football players, all of that. What are the problems that you see in Uzbek football? Well, let's just say like top 3 problems, if you can count, like, because you watch European football as well, not just Premier League, right? You just watch pretty much all the leagues, and when you compare them against Uzbek football, what problems just stand out?
I think a lot of development has happened over the last 5 to 10 years in terms of like the standards of the stadiums. They look a lot better. The pitches look a lot better. So even sort of things like the promotional activities that the league does is a lot better. Its development is a lot better. I think fan interaction is not the best. It's not the best. You do see a lot of partially filled stadiums that look like, it's a 20,000 seater stadium and it looks like it has 3,000 people in it. I think they need to get it. They need, instead of there just being Andy Jean and everybody else, they need 4 or 5 of them. When you have your 14, 15 time league champions and they're in a stadium and it doesn't look like there's anybody there, and you have the team in the national team stadium and it doesn't look like there's anybody there, it's not great. And when you compare that to when like the U23 tournament was in Uzbekistan and the national team stadium was full, and you could see the difference, and it made the game so much better. That level of crowd interaction, I think that's kind of the major issue for Uzbekistan, is just getting people to the games, getting people to care outside of the odd national team game. I've been the main one. Secondly, I think it's kind of just making people outside of Uzbekistan maybe aware of it more. It's notoriously difficult to sort of, like, you can't find football shirts. Like, you can't find football shirts anywhere. It's very difficult. The only ones I've ever gotten are the ones that have kindly been given to me. And I've looked for any shirt from any team, from any year, and you can't find them online. So I think they need to maybe push to get
Marketing,
yeah, get and have somewhere, be it online, that people can, buy a NatSaf shirt and be able to wear it if they live in Sweden or if they live in America or in the UK or something. Just need to get the idea of that those leagues have teams and those teams have commercial gear. Because you see people, I see people all the time wearing Al Nassr shirts and teams from China and Japan, and you don't see that for Uzbekistan because there's no way to get it. Thirdly, don't know. I'm not sure. I think it would just be a case of just having more players leave Uzbekistan to play in other leagues.
Yeah,
but I think that is happening, and having it done at an earlier age. Having players in the youth teams of the big 5 in Europe, or even in places like Sweden or Scotland or Denmark or somewhere like that, just having more Uzbek players get their footballing education abroad, and being able to, if they don't work out and they go back to Uzbekistan, bringing that training that they're used to, that standard back.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, as you mentioned, I think it's happening, especially the younger players going out, but
yeah,
I think there's still a lot work can be done to promote, because like, for example, like, even the scouting opportunities are limited in Uzbekistan, because most scouts, they watch like lots of videos and they do like data analysis, right? I'm an analyst myself, so when I was trying to analyze Uzbek football, there is no data available, right?
yeah,
when you do you see on Twitter a lot of analysis and just tactical analysis and player scouting reports on Twitter or anywhere on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's very hard for Uzbek people. I think that's also a limiting factor.
You see, at least I see it kind of the feeds that I get, that you see people who work for clubs who do it. They'll have a Twitter account or something, and they'll be scout or video analysis and it'll be insert random club from Denmark. And if that person can't do a profile on an Uzbek player, they can't then try and sell that player. Because if that player impresses them enough, they're not going to keep it a secret from whatever club they're getting paid by to do this job. If the player impresses enough, they'll go, have you looked at this guy? And they might go, fantastic, get him in. Even if it's for a trial, it's an opportunity that doesn't exist if people who do the thing that you do and others are able to sort of actually have access to that. So I think that may be something, again, that the football association needs to kind of push.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think that analytics in general is just kind of not developing as much as how the players are developing. It's not catching up. So
yeah,
people don't know the talents that we have in Uzbekistan. That's also one of the things we're trying to kind of fix right now. Hopefully we'll in the future we'll be working with clubs. So we'll be doing a lot of scouting. So that's in the plans. The next question I had was, what thing from what aspect of Uzbek football would you bring to for example UK? Is there anything that that would say that this thing Uzbek football is done really well?
I think for me, and one of the reasons I love Uzbek football is because it doesn't have some of the negatives that football, at least if you follow the English Premier League, it has. It's not as reactionary. You don't have, for example, Arsenal drew today. People are acting like it's the world's about to fall down because they dropped points. You don't have that if Nasaf lost 2 games in a row. There's not that level of dramatizing it. So I think things like that, it's more pure to me. It's more what football should be. You support the team. There's a long-term plan. Things may not be great now, but things will work out. People are too reactionary now in big European football, and you have all of these Twitter accounts which are all just clickbait and rage bait and dramatic, and I can't stand it. So I think that's kind of the main difference is Uzbek football and I guess most other leagues that are kind of under the radar are kind of just a little bit more genuine. There's less aggressiveness. I've never had anyone be mean to me. As not being an Uzbek person, speaking about Uzbek football, everybody I've ever interacted with has been lovely. If anything, they've been the complete opposite. They've been really nice. So I think it's just the niceness of people who follow that football is so much nicer than people who follow Premier League football, because you don't have people being mean or people creating chaos and negativity.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, also so we watch the Premier League games and all the top 5 games online, right, on TV and stuff. We do actually see people still fighting as well. It's very dramatic to the matches or during the matches, just throwing stuff at each other, and it doesn't make it look very, very good. It kind of gets nasty. So but that's awesome. But in terms of, again, sorry, going back to the national team now, in terms of how we're playing right now to the World Cup, are you satisfied with the performances that we're doing? That's one. Second thing is, also we have 4 months, I think, until the next matches, right?
It's March.
So 3-4 month. Yeah. Would you replace the current manager, Katanis?
No, no, I wouldn't. I think he's considering, I think the expanded World Cup, the amount of teams that can get into it is Uzbekistan is a country that can benefit a lot from that. When it comes to the current world qualifying group, I think they're second. They're 4 points, 5 points clear of third.
Yeah, I think points, I believe.
Yeah, so there's a gap, and I think they started off really, really well, and they benefited from an underperforming Qatar and an underperforming UAE. I think they should still qualify fairly comfortably. I think Iran won't. Iran will qualify with ease, and I think they'll stop caring. So I think they can win, and they can beat Iran. I think they can beat everyone else in the group. And I think that the approach that the manager has of ensuring that they don't lose to their competitors. Obviously, they lost to Qatar, but that was very dubious. I'll be polite when I say dubious, but I think that they can qualify, and they probably will. I just think they need to beat Kyrgyzstan, Korea, which I think they should, both of them, and then just ensure that the other teams don't catch them, which I don't think they will, because of how good the start was, where they were like, was it like 10 points after 4 games or something, and like the other teams had very little.
Yeah, exactly.
And they obviously, I think they host Qatar. Can't
Yeah.
remember if they host the UAE, but I know they host Qatar. So as long as they don't drop points in that game, or they draw at least, I think they should go through.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the last game will be with Qatar and Uzbekistan, I believe. And then I think Uzbekistan will go to UAE to play them over there, because we already played one in Uzbekistan that we won 1-0. Yeah. So yeah, also, like, I think we're getting good at not losing to Iran. So that also is there. So hopefully when we play Iran the next game, that we don't lose, that other teams will lose, hopefully. Yeah.
I think that's I think Iran are going to be massive. If they can beat those two teams, that's massive. Because we've already got a point from the Iran in the game in Uzbekistan. If we get another point, and those two teams get 0 points from those 2 games, that's 2 points that we've got that they don't have. And that's a case of just not losing to those teams, so that they don't get the ability to catch Uzbekistan, because they're not getting anything. They're just maintaining the status quo. And I expect Uzbekistan to beat Korea and beat Kyrgyzstan. So there should be at least another 6 points. And then it's a case of, from the last 3, that I think they need to get maybe 4. And then I don't think they'll be able to be caught. If they get 10 points from the next 5 games, I don't see how they get caught.
Yeah. I think I was doing some analysis, thinking that what would be the minimum points that we need to even qualify as a second place minimum. I think that was 21, I believe. So if we get 21 points, and we should be good. But I think, I believe that even if we get, for example, 19 points total, so if we win 2 more games, again, it depends on other people's game matches too, right? So we should be at least in a good place. So at least we need to win, a Qatar game at the end. Well, that's going to be the last match.
I think the fact that the UAE beat Qatar is important, because I'm more worried about Qatar than I am the UAE, and I think they'll have to take points off each other as well. So I think that's massive. So it's a case of, if the UAE is underperforming but then beats Qatar again, that could be huge. But I think Uzbekistan should qualify. I'll be very surprised if they don't. If they didn't qualify automatically, I'd be very nervous, because I think the teams that would be in the 3rd, 4th playoff bit, there could be some challenging games, and I worry that things would just collapse. And they would then kind of, they would draw like an Australia, and I don't know who else they would possibly draw, but an Australia and like a Qatar or something like that, and then they could end up losing out.
Exactly. I think that if we don't qualify in this, from this round, the next will be like very tough, because I think we might actually get like Saudi Arabia, like, like Australia, or like even the Indonesia right now, like, looks dangerous.
Yeah, obviously I think even if they come, the way it works is like the first 2 go through, then the others go to like a playoff, and if you lose the playoff, you go to another playoff. So there's like multiple ways to get there. I think, considering the start, there shouldn't be anything but automatic qualification, and then they can just sit back and prep for the World Cup and play friendlies and stuff like that, and get the squad in a good shape to compete in America and Mexico and Canada. I don't want to be worrying about playing Australia in late 2025.
Yeah, exactly. So would you like go to US, Canada, Mexico, if Uzbekistan, for example, qualifies? to watch?
If it's feasible, I would happily go. I'm not sure how easy it'll be to get tickets, and I think obviously those countries are massive. The cost implications of trying to travel between all of those cities I'm actually it's going to be crazy. But if it's possible, 100%, it would be incredible. Going to be there for the first game they've ever played in a World Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
But it'll be, maybe not as good, but it'll be even still great to sort of just see and watch that game and have the world's eyes on Uzbek football and Uzbek players, and hopefully people in press, and it again just continues further development, and they become a constant at that level rather than an almost.
Yeah, yeah. It's always been like almost a week,
Mm.
and almost every time. Yeah. So I think you mentioned that you'd be like very nervous if Uzbekistan doesn't qualify from this round. So the next question is like, do you like how much do you care like about like the results? Like, do you feel bad when Uzbekistan loses? Like in those matches, like with like for example Qatar game, right?
It's kind of strange for me because it's like, obviously, like I'm Scottish, so I cheer for Scotland. But I think if Scotland is like 100, Uzbekistan's like 90. So like I am bothered when they lose. I don't like to watch them. I don't like to watch them lose. I want them to win. If they played Scotland, I'd want a really nice draw because I'd want no team to lose. But no, it does bother me. It does kind of ruin my day. Like when they lost to Qatar, and the man that they lost to Qatar, I thought it was a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they should have won that game. So it does bother me, but I think that's just years of kind of getting used to the football and enjoying it and kind of feeling a connection with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's awesome. I mean that's an awesome that we will lose sometimes and stuff, but just kind of imagine like like both I'm from UK just kind of cares like is bothered by the losses, which shows that how much you're like you being this Uzbek football and how much you care about this football. We appreciate that because it's like a very it's very fascinating that we have like one more fan like
Right.
so far away. Yeah. Okay, so I think I have the last question. Would you be able to kind of make up a team of 11 of all the best Uzbek football players that you watched throughout all the years, the national team?
Wow. I'm worried I'll forget about someone.
And I mean,
I think if I was to try and do it now, I think I would be Nesterov in goal. I like Denisov.
either one. Yeah.
Yeah, Denisov at left back. Have to have Kisanov in there. I think who would partner Kisanov? I'm forgetting his name. Ismailov? Uh, yeah, Ismailov, and then I'd probably put, if I do like Aljonev at right back, then it's hard.
So we have the goalkeeper. We have 4 players in the. So you play like I guess 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna do like I think maybe a 4-3-3. That's so hard. It's just like, then I would probably have,
There's Kaidaro who played.
yeah, there's like Kapadze, and then there's like,
Kapadze.
I'll say Amrubekov, Kapadze with Akhmedov and Japarov would be the kind of three, and then
Sure. And
so, yeah, I'd have Maxim Shashkish.
yes,
He'd
Shaski.
have to go up front.
Yeah.
And then you'd have Eldor, play Eldor off the right, and then Mashaparov off the left.
Masharipo.
Yeah, I'd have to. I'd have to put him in as well. I think
Oh.
that would be that'd be the team I would go for.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I think that would be the. I would also just think that would be a really good team.
Yeah.
I'll probably change maybe 1 or 2 maximum, but I think this is the strongest team.
Yeah.
Past at least the past 15-20 years.
Yeah, I know that obviously there's players from like the 90s, so like Andrei Fedorov, like played for Kazan. And there'd be players I'm not familiar with, so like I couldn't remember them.
Yeah, and then there was a Shishov, who was also like left back. Would take up Denisov stuff, but Denisov was really good too.
Yeah.
And technically very good. And you chose I would also choose Ismailov over Alikulov.
Yeah,
Alikulov is good, but yeah, Ismailov was good. It was like a tank, you know.
yeah. And I think he was prone to getting a goal as well. So like it
Yeah,
kind of
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Conor, for your time. This was
thank you.
really lovely to speak with you and I get to know more about you. Well, before we say goodbye, I was gonna say, what's your Twitter account that people can follow you?
So it's just underscore Uzbek football. I also have like the blue sky thing, but that's just Uzbek football. So yeah, just those two.
Okay, underscore Uzbek football. Okay. I mean, it would be like, like I said, a lot of people know about you, just briefly because, like, you don't always see somebody from like, from Ukraine following Uzbek football, but hopefully this podcast would help them, just understand more about you and then just follow you and then just,
Hopefully,
because you also like in broadcast, you always like, putting up good stuff about Uzbek football, your thoughts. So
I'll try.
yeah, awesome. Thank you so much again.
No, thank you very much.
Appreciate that.